Alright guys, the time is now for a showdown between the Dwarves, who are going to be led by Rune Lord, and Bretonnia, who's going to be helmed by the Fey Enchantress. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So as far as my front line goes, I do have an entire core of the Longbeards with great weapons. So I feel like these guys are pretty good in this matchup, simply because, number one, they trade pretty well with foot squires, they have solid armor piercing, pretty good combat stats, and number two, they have charge defense against large foes. So for a great weapon unit having charge defense, and Bretonnia, obviously, in this matchup, is pretty much just going to bring foot squires as well as questing knights. So they're pretty good against, everything that your opponent is typically going to bring. So we do have an entire front line of these bad boys. And also something else to mention is that they are immune to psychology. So against these big, scary Royal Hippogriff Knights, actually going to be somewhat durable. So we do have that entire front line of the Longbeards. On the flanks, we also have two groups of Longbeards with great weapons, the exact same thing. And again, they're pretty good on the flanks as well with that charge defense. In the center, we do have our anti-cav gun squad. So we have three groups of Thunders. Definitely pretty solid, but I feel like three might be a little bit ambitious. It's definitely going to be tough to protect against like a very aggressive Bretonnian force, especially with flying. And yeah, Royal Hippogriff Knights definitely caught me off guard here. It's like, oh no, the Knights are here. But three groups of Thunders can definitely put a bit of a pounding on questing Knights and foot squires. Definitely very solid if left unimpeded. And something that's cool about them is they are pretty durable in melee with 80 armor. So they're not going to get like massacred right away, but questing Knights can definitely do a number on these bad boys. So we got three groups of Thunders. We have Giant Slayers here in the back. So these dudes got their Mohawks out. They got their Great Axes. Definitely not a bad choice. I think mixing the Giant Slayers with the Dragonback Slayers is definitely very strong, because the Dragonback Slayers, of course, don't have as much armor piercing, but they do also have that slowing effect, which is just game breaking. If they have like a powerful flying unit or a cab unit, it can make the difference, that ability to like slow them down by, I think it's like 25% or something like that. Let's go ahead and look. So power of the Dragonback, 36%. Damn, that is really, really good. And the last thing that I think is pretty essential in this matchup is the triple runesmith. So what you do is you get a Rune Lord. He has Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin, and I would also recommend bringing the Rune of Negation, but aside from that, you can strip him down a little bit. And we do also have two Runesmiths, each of which only has the Runes of Wrath and Ruin. So very good for slowing down the cav. It gives you some counterplay against, cycle charging, and if things are kiting you, you can do a little bit of damage to them at least. So we have the triple Rune Lord here, definitely ready to party. That's my entire army. So the only thing I might change in like a retrospect, just looking at it right now, is maybe three Thunders is definitely very ambitious, but again, we'll see how it works out this game. So we do have three of those bad boys for my opponent's army. He's got all foot squires, so pretty standard stuff here, just going foot squires in the front line. For their cost, they trade upwards very well against dwarf infantry. So I'm going to need the runesmiths to kind of deal with their sheer numbers here. Plus, they also have the healing and the Mist of the Lady coming down. So Mist of the Lady can lower the melee attack of my troops. He's got Chalice of Potions, and then, of course, all the healing effects. You pretty much have to bring that. If you want to go with Royal Hippogriff Knights, you need that fat dank healing to keep those guys alive. On top of that, I think he has four of the questing knights. One of them is going to be the companion, so they're kind of lurking throughout the map here. So one here looks like the companions are over here in the forest. These guys are just beasts. 47, 48 on their combat stats, 48 armor piercing, a pretty decent charge bonus. I think they actually have some durability against fire. So you know what? If I felt like using Iron Drakes, these guys could definitely be a force of nature. So that's pretty much it for my entire army here. Not my entire army, my opponent's army. I think he does have some mounted yeomen over in the forest, which is a pretty good choice. If he's able to break something, he could just chase me down for free. So without further ado, guys, let's get this show on the road. Right now, I'm going to be advancing. Neither of us have artillery, of course. There's going to be no blessings coming from the Bretonnians this day, nor any grudge throwers being launched at, or goblins being launched at my opponent. So we're just going to be pushing forward. The foot squires getting ready. There is a little bit of a lip here, so I wanted to get my Thunders on top of that so I could get some decent shooting angles. We'll be popping the Runes of Wrath and Ruin on the questing knights pretty much every chance I get. I mean, arguably, there is a case to be made to use it more defensively, but I just like to get it out to make sure I can get all of them used before the end of the battle, because sometimes the battles can be short, they can be long, you never know. So you do get that Rune of Wrath and Ruin on these guys, and you can see it's doing some pretty good damage already. It does slow them down, which doesn't matter right now. It looks like the foot squires are going to be charging forward, so I'm going to be meeting them in combat with the Longbeards. And we do get a decent little volley right here on the foot squires as they charge in. Not going to kill any models, but definitely going to soften them up for the Longbeards. We do have actually quite a few less models, so that's something else to take into account. But the Longbeards do collide with the foot squires. My supporting group of Longbeards will be engaging as well, and the Runesmith needs to get in that frontline engagement because you can see my guys are taking some pretty decent damage. So realizing there is some pressure on the flanks, I will be pulling up my Giant Slayers. Although I did not see these questing knights coming down through the forest here, so I pulled them up to like deal with these guys, and then these guys came from the back. I was like, oh no, the Thunders are getting some decent shots on the Royal Hippogriff Knights, doing some okay damage, and you can see the Runes of Wrath and Ruin already generating a ton of value on the questing knights. There's the Master. I should have used that on the companions, but I just basically clicked whatever I could reach at the moment. These Longbeards are going to engage with the foot squires here, and you can see the Dwarven formation. It's going pretty well. The Dragonback Slayers do take the charge of the Mounted Yeoman, which is a good play for my opponent. He's basically just like mucking them up so the other stuff can run unimpeded. We do drag down some of the Mounted Yeomen. Longbeards take the charge like a boss. They're getting cut down a little bit, but there's a lot of pressure coming from my opponent. The two groups, look at the Longbeards though. They're not doing terribly considering how much elite cab they're fighting right here. But the Royal Hippogriff Knights do land right here. I didn't have enough resources to stop them as well. I am able to peel off these Questing Knights in the back. Chalice of Potions going down right here doesn't do a whole lot. And the Dragonback Slayers do kill the Mounted Yeoman. So, huge mistake here. I accidentally left them to chase the Mounted Yeoman, and I should have pulled them back to attack these Questing Knights. That would have just been huge, but alas, no one is perfect. So over here, he does charge over here with the Companions, gets a nice little rear charge on my Longbeard. So working his way through, I actually do lose a couple of frontline engagements. So right here, I lost because those Foot Squires had favor of the Fae. Over here, I do win. The Longbeards win here. They win here. So we won a couple engagements. We lost a couple. The Runesmiths will be falling back here. And yeah, things are getting pretty hog wild. So the Thunders do reform ranks. I put them in guard mode so they'll start shooting, because I definitely need to get some firepower going on those Royal Hippogriff Knights and some of these elite troops up in the hill. So the Runesmith falling back a little bit. These guys just unloading into the Questing Knights and the Royal Hippogriff Knights. They are supported by the Runesmith as well, and I have the Giant Slayers nearby. Definitely need to peel them back, but I do get a Rune of Wrath and Ruin on those Companions. And yeah, Longbeards are doing pretty well for themselves. They've won a couple of the engagements. However, those Royal Hippogriff Knights actually did a really good job of breaking me up and getting into those Thunders here. So you can see, at this point, I do realize the Dragonback Slayers overchase. Definitely something that could really come back to bite me later in the game, but those bad boys will be hustling back to the fight. Giant Slayers and everyone else are hustling back as well, and I'm basically just pulling the Thunders back here because the Knights of Bretonnia, just a massive downhill charge led by the Hippogriff Knights, definitely very thematic and cool looking. But I'm just trying to get the Thunders back behind the Giant Slayers because I really need that heavy armor piercing. The Runes of Wrath and Ruin aren't going to be terribly helpful against the Royal Hippogriff Knights. So a massive Earthblood going down, great value, hitting Questing Knights, hitting all these guys. The Longbeards are standing and fighting. You can see the Thunders do actually get terrified, but the Longbeards, of course, are immune to psychology. And I do get my Slayers here to kind of pin them as they try and retreat. So this is a really good situation. Dragonback Slayers, of course, going to take some casualties from just the sheer brute force of the Companions and the Hippogriff Knights, but nonetheless, they're also giving it back. They're doing a pretty good job. They're unbreakable. You can see that one Dragonback Slayer just getting tossed up in the air by that Hippogriff Knight. Definitely not fun, but we are delivering a lot of casualties right here. You see the Companions getting the Questing Knights taking quite a bit of damage, although were those the Companions? There they are. And the main fight's going okay. Balancing power is pretty even. I have some Thunders in the high ground rallying. A lot of Dwarf troops in the distance kind of coming back here. Another Rune of Wrath and Ruin going down on the Foot Squires here, trying to win that fight. But my Longbeards are getting very tattered by just the numbers of Foot Squires, because I think he had a numbers advantage in the Foot Squire game. I'm not sure. But the Rune Lord here is going to be fighting shoulder to shoulder with some of the Giant Slayers. Not a great engagement for me because I don't want to be using my Giant Slayers to fight the Foot Squires. Granted, I don't have much of a choice here. I kind of just have to fight with whatever I have nearby. The Knights are kind of circling and just doing some cycle charging, but you can see they're very beat up from their fighting with the Dragonback Slayers. 10 here. The one thing that's going to be really tough for me is going to be dealing with the Royal Hippogriff Knights, because my best answer for them, the Thunders. I have some Thunders online here in the center pocket. I have 24. I also do have a 32 up on the hill here. You can see we're getting some pot shots, trying to slowly wear these bad boys down. But the Fey Enchantress undoubtedly probably still has some regrowth. So over here, Dragonback Slayers are fighting some Foot Squires. They're also able to get some good kills on the Companions, who are steady, but are slowly kind of getting, worn apart here. You can see the Runesmiths are going to be waddling across the battlefield on the toilet seat, and hopefully able to do some good work. But this is really nice for me. I do have the Thunders back online, which is going to give me some great Overwatch fire. I have some support with the Runes of Wrath and Ruin. I think I have one left on each one, so there's still going to be a bit of pressure. Dragonback Slayers are just fighting to the bitter end, and they're fighting good targets. They're fighting big targets. Unfortunately, the Dwarves are getting tossed up in the air a little bit. Smith having a good old time against those Hippogriff Knights. Foot Squires in here are just kind of waddling their way in and doing some good karate chops on the Slayers. Definitely the thing that's taking them down very quickly are the Foot Squires, but we should be able to clean them up. Over here, I do get a Rune of Wrath and Ruin, but he does get a successful charge on my Longbeards there. They were braced, but if I'm not mistaken, but yeah, they were just so low that I don't think it really mattered. But Thunder is still in good health, getting some shots off, able to shoot at those Questing Knights up on the hill, getting some volleys right here on these these Royal Hippogriff Knights. Questing Hippogriff Knights. Imagine how terrifying that would be. But regardless, these guys are down to 3,900 HP, but this is going to be a brutal charge here. And you can see the impact of these Hippogriff Knights just absolutely shrekking these Dwarves here. Beautiful stuff from my opponent. And I think he does have the Fey Enchantress in here as well, so getting some really good Earthbloods, I would imagine. Looks like there's going to be some fat healing going down here in just a moment. But my other Thunders are still getting that fire from the hill. This one group of Thunders is shooting as well. You can see they're firing. And yeah, man, that heal is so cost-effective on the Royal Hippogriff Knights, so definitely very good stuff. I do get a Rune of Wrath and Ruin as these guys come in. It was the Master one, so these Knights are definitely going to get dragged down by the Dwarves. You can see they're going to break in a matter of seconds once these Giant Slayers get in there. I don't have too many Giant Slayers left, though. I think I have like 15 or 16. You can see the Questing Knights being dehorsed by those Valiant Slayers, which is always a good sight to see for the old Grumblers. But yeah, the Companions are broken off. It's basically just going to be Chalice Potions. Was a bit of a miss on those Thunders, but the Fey Enchantress is going to be hunting them down, and he does have the mobility advantage with the Royal Hippogriff Knights. So at this point, he's just chasing down the Thunders. I have that other group on the hill shooting, but it's going to be tough. I mean, I have the Runesmiths, but Runesmiths are not like, I mean, they are decent combat characters, but they don't have the best armor piercing. And on top of that, the Royal Hippogriff Knights do also have pretty good physical resist. So they have a lot of mitigation against my troops here. And you can see that the favor of the Fae going down, which gives them some just juiced up stats. For the first time here in the battle, the bounce power does go in the favor of my opponent. You can see his Royal Hippogriff Knights trying to squeak away. I do use a Rune of Wrath and Ruin just for the slowing effect, not for the damage, to try and get them, but I mean, it's basically just the Fae and the Hippogriff Knights. Nothing else my opponent has is really of substance, and same goes for me. This is all I have, is like, I have 3 Giant Slayers. I think I have a couple Dragonback Slayers who are going to be the true hero of the people. That is it. So a little bit of reposturing here, so there will be some fast forwarding as I do just hunt this guy down. Just the mere glare of those Dragonback Slayers shatters those Quest Knights, which is very cool. With my opponent regrouping the Foot Squires here, which is going to be pretty good. Shouldn't be able to break them down with the Rune Lords and the Runesmiths, but I put my Dragonback Slayers and the other guys behind, preparing for the final engagement. Here it comes. So the Slayers aren't going to last terribly long. 2 of them do die on impact. The last one has 10 HP and he's on the ground here. Definitely a hero of his people. He will be going down in the Hall of his ancestors there. The Runesmiths here are doing an okay job trying to fight these Hippogriff Knights, but another Earthblood going down is just so devastating. They're back up to 4,700 and very close to their healing caps. They probably healed for like 4,000 or 5,000 HP this game. I mean, somewhat close to that, and it's been really tough to finish them off. So the fight is underway. The Runesmiths are just kind of brawling, trying to do whatever damage I can to those Royal Hippogriff Knights, but really not doing a whole lot. You can see the bounce power is shifting out of my favor here. He does a little bit of charging, but they're just kind of attacking the low-life Runesmith, trying to pick him off, which is good. And at this point, we do break off the Runesmiths, not the Runesmiths, the Foot Squires. So now it's just the Royal Hippogriff Knights and the Fey Enchantress. Very, very close fight here. But alas, the healing on the Royal Hippogriff Knights plus the Fey Enchantress play has been really good. My opponent did a great job methodically getting rid of the Thunders, which were the biggest threat to the Royal Hippogriff Knights. I probably, in retrospect, should have focused more on the Royal Hippogriff Knights, just ignored the Quest Knights and used my Slayers to kill them and just focus all my powder on the Hippogriff Knights. I think that was a big mistake. But yeah, super well played to my opponent. It was a really fun game. It was cool to see the Royal Hippogriff Knights be used effectively and well, because they actually were a huge menace that game. I mean, they were able to circumvent a lot of my defenses. So if I had to change the build, in hindsight, I would probably cut one group of Thunders. Maybe the Longbeards were a good choice, though. I felt like they were pretty good. But maybe do I want to mix in some like lower tier troops like Dwarf Warriors with Grey Weapons and things like that? I don't know. It's hard to say. Probably maybe cut a group of Thunders here, maybe cut one group of Longbeards, get another group of Slayers, and then maybe get a couple like Miners with the remaining money just to like fill in the gap against the, the Foot Squires and things like that. But yeah, it was just really well played. It was a very close game. There was a couple small micro decisions. I think that one of the big things that really cost me the game was when the Dragonback Slayers overchased, because that like was a very crucial point in the battle in which my Thunders were being compromised. But had I been able to defend them with Dragonback Slayers, I think I could have pulled it out, but maybe not. I mean, my opponent still did such a damn good job with his Royal Hippogriff Knights, and his cycle charging was also quite effective. So very well played to my opponent here. Absolute beast this game. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Dawi Showdown, and guys, I got a lot more content coming soon.